Hello,
Steelers
friends.
Nation,
Welcome
what we
back
just
to
found out
another
about Mike
important video
Tomlin is
that could
absolutely
potentially
incredible,
save you
and it
hundreds of
explains
pounds
so
every
much about
single
what we've
year
been
on
seeing
your
from this
essential
team.
shopping expenses.
This isn't just coaching,
If you
this
are a
is
pensioner
next-level
living on a
leadership that's
fixed income
quietly
in the United
transforming
Kingdom,
everything
you
happening
need
in
to pay
Pittsburgh
close
right
attention
now.
to what
If
I
you
am
want
about to
daily
share with you
Steelers
today,
updates and
because the
breaking news like
landscape of
this,
senior
smash
discounts
that
and
subscribe
retailer
button, because
programs
what I'm about
has
to tell
changed
you is
dramatically
going to change
over
how
the
you
past
see
few
this
years.
entire
And
organization.
nobody is going to
So
tell you
here's
about
what's
these
happening.
changes
Mike
unless
Tomlin
you
has been using
specifically
a
ask.
teaching method
Many
with
of
the
you have been
Steelers
loyally
roster
shopping at
that's
the same
completely
supermarkets
different
and
from what we've
stores
seen
for
in
decades,
years past,
assuming that
and
the
players are
discounts you
starting
once
to
knew
talk
about
about it.
are still
We're
available
hearing
and
whispers
active.
from
But the
inside the
truth
locker
is,
room.
some of
We're
them
seeing
have
the
quietly
results on the
disappeared
field.
without
And when
any
you connect
major
all the
announcement or
dots,
notification
it becomes
to
clear that
customers.
Tomlin has
On the other
evolved his
hand,
entire
some
approach
stores
to
that you might
coaching
have
this
been
team.
avoiding because
And it's
you thought
working
they
in
offered
ways
nothing
that could
special for
define the
pensioners
next era of
actually have
Steelers
programs
football.
worth hundreds
Let me
of
explain
pounds
what's going on,
annually
because
that
this
the
is deeper
staff
than
at
you
the
think.
checkout counter
Mike
will never
Tomlin has
mention to
always
you
been known as a
unless you
player's
know
coach,
to ask for
right?
them
The
specifically.
guy who can relate to
With
his
the
locker
cost of
room,
living
who speaks
crisis
their language,
continuing
who
to
commands
impact seniors
respect without
across
being a
the
drill
UK,
sergeant. But what's
especially
coming
those
out
trying to
now is
survive
that
on
Tomlin
the
has
basic
taken his
state
communication
pension, which
style and
currently
his
stands
teaching
at just over
philosophy to a
£200 per
completely
week.
different level.
Every single
He's
penny
not just giving
saved on
speeches
groceries,
anymore.
medications,
He's not just
and
motivating
essential
guys with
household
one-liners
items
and
makes a
viral press
genuine
conference
difference
moments.
to your quality
He's
of
actually
life
breaking
and
down the game in a
financial
way that's
stability.
clicking with younger
This is
players and
exactly why
veterans
I
alike,
created
and it's
UK
creating this
Pensioners
unified
Insiders, a
understanding
channel
across the
dedicated
entire roster
entirely
that we
to
haven't
helping
seen in a
pensioners
long
and
time.
seniors across
Here's
the
where it gets
United
really
Kingdom
interesting.
navigate
Sources
the
close to the
complex
team
world
have been
of
talking
retail
about how
discounts,
Tomlin has
government
adapted his
benefits,
coaching to
and
fit the
financial
modern
programs
NFL
that are
player.
specifically
And I'm
designed
not
for
talking
older
about going
adults,
soft or
but are
lowering
often
standards.
poorly
I'm
advertised
talking about
or
the exact
deliberately
opposite.
hidden in small
Tomlin
print
has figured
that
out how to
nobody
teach
tells you
complex
about.
football concepts
My
in a way that
mission with
resonates with
UK
today's
Pensioners
generation of
Insiders
players who
is to
process
cut through
information
the
differently than
confusion
guys
and bring
did
you
10 or 15
accurate,
years ago.
up-to-date information
He's
about
using
what
film study
benefits you are
sessions that are
actually
more
entitled to claim,
interactive.
which
He's
retail
breaking down
programs
opponent
are
tendencies in
genuinely
real
still
time with
active in
technology and visual
2026,
aids that
and
make it
which ones have
easier
been
for players to see
discontinued
exactly
but
what
are
he's
still being
seeing.
talked about
He's
as if
giving
they
guys
exist.
ownership over
I
their
know
own
how
development
frustrating it can
instead of
be
just
when you
barking
are living on a
orders.
fixed
And the
income,
result?
trying to make your
Players aren't
pension
just hearing what
stretch to
Tomlin
cover
says.
rising
They're
energy
understanding
bills,
it on a
increasing
fundamental
food
level.
costs,
They're
and
internalizing
unexpected
it. They're
expenses
executing
that
it
seem
on
to come up
Sundays.
every single
We're
month.
seeing fewer mental
Whether you are
mistakes.
claiming
We're
personal
seeing better
independence payment,
in-game adjustments.
employment and
We're
support
seeing
allowance,
young guys step
attendance
up in
allowance,
critical
or
moments
relying
because they
solely on your
actually
state
know what they're
pension,
supposed to
the
do
information I
and why
share
they're
on this
supposed to
channel
do it.
is designed to help
Think about
you
what we've watched
maximize
this
every
season.
benefit
Think
you
about
are
how
entitled
rookies
to,
and
and
second-year
stop
players
leaving
have
money
been
on the
contributing
table
at a
at
level
retailers
that
who are
usually
more than
takes
happy
years to
to keep
develop.
quiet about
That's
the
not an
discounts
accident.
you could be
That's
claiming.
coaching. That's
Before we dive
Tomlin
deep
creating
into
an
which store
environment where
discounts are
learning
real
happens
and which
faster
ones have vanished,
because the
I
teaching is
need you to
better.
do something
And for a
that will
team that's
benefit
been
you
in transition
enormously
mode,
over
trying
the
to build a
coming
new
months.
identity while staying
Subscribe to UK
competitive in the
Pensioners
brutal
Insiders right
AFC
now,
North,
and make sure you
this
turn
kind
on
of
the
coaching
notification
evolution
bell
is
so you never miss an
absolutely
update.
massive.
Retail policies
Now let's talk about the
change
specifics,
constantly
because
throughout
this isn't
the year,
some vague
sometimes
feel-good story.
with no public
We're hearing that
announcement
Tomlin has
whatsoever,
completely
and most
revamped how he
pensioners
runs
only
meetings.
find out about
Instead
these
of the
changes
traditional
when they
setup where
arrive
the
at
coach
store,
talks and players
expecting
listen,
a discount that
Tomlin
no longer
is getting
exists,
guys involved
which
in the
is embarrassing
conversation.
and
He's
frustrating.
asking questions.
The subscribers
He's making
to this
players
channel
explain
find out
concepts
about
back to
policy
him.
changes
He's
before
creating
they make the trip
dialogue
to the
instead of
store,
monologue.
before they waste
And what
petrol or
that
bus
does
fare,
is force
and
players
before
to
they feel
actually
the
think about the
disappointment
game
of being told
instead
at the
of just
checkout
memorizing
that a program
plays.
they relied
It's
on
the difference
has been
between
cancelled.
knowing what to do and
Subscribe right
understanding
now and
why
let
you're
us get
doing
into the
it.
details of
One
what is
example that's been
genuinely
floating
available
around
to you
is how
in
Tomlin works with the
2026
defense.
and what specific
We all know
actions
the
you need
Steelers
to
have had to
take
reload
claim
on that side of
every
the ball
single
over the
pound
past few
you are
years.
entitled to save.
Gone are the days of having
Let
a
us start
defense
with the
full of
retailers,
future Hall of
where
Famers who
pensioners
could
are
just
currently
line up
leaving
and
the
dominate
most
through pure
significant
talent
amount
and
of money on the
experience.
table.
Now
Not
you've got
because they
younger
are
players,
careless or
guys who are still
uninformed,
learning the
but
NFL
simply
game,
because these
guys who need
programs are
coaching to
not
maximize
advertised
their
clearly,
potential.
and the
And
staff are
Tomlin,
not
working
trained to
alongside
volunteer
his
the
defensive
information
staff,
unless
has
you
been teaching these
specifically
players
ask
how to
for it.
diagnose offenses before the
Iceland
snap.
is one of the most
He's not
valuable
just telling
discount
them where to
programs
line up.
available to
He's teaching
UK
them how to
pensioners
read
right now,
formations,
and it
how
has
to
been
recognize route
consistently operating
concepts,
since
how to anticipate
2022
what's coming
without
based on
interruption.
down and
Every
distance and
single
personnel
Tuesday,
groupings.
anyone aged
And here's the
60 years
brilliant
or
part.
over receives 10%
Tomlin is
off their
using the
entire
opposing team's own
in-store
film
food
against
shopping,
them in these
and there is
teaching
no
sessions.
complicated
He'll
coupon
show
to print
Steelers offers defenders exactly what the upcoming opponent likes to do in specific situations, and then he'll quiz the players on it. What are they going to run here? What tells are you looking for? Where's the ball going? And by the time Sunday rolls around, these guys aren't just reacting to what they see, they're expecting it, they're playing faster because their mind is already ahead of the play. The same thing is happening on offense. Arthur Smith is running that side of the ball, but make no mistake, Tomlin's fingerprints are all over the operation. We're seeing the offensive line communicate better. We're seeing running backs understand their protections and their reads in the passing game. We're seeing receivers get open because they understand defensive coverages and how to exploit them. All of that starts with teaching. All of that starts with a head coach who's created a culture where learning is a priority and where players are empowered to take control of their own development. Let's bring this back to the quarterback position for a second, because this is where Tomlin's teaching method might be having the biggest impact. Whether we're talking about Kenny Pickett earlier in his career or whoever's under center for the Steelers, the quarterback position is all about processing information quickly and making the right decision under pressure. And if your head coach can teach you how to see the game the way he sees it, that's invaluable. Tomlin has been in this league for almost 2 decades. He's seen every defense, every scheme, every trick play. And if he can download that knowledge into his quarterback's brain in a way that actually sticks, you're talking about accelerating development in a massive way. We've seen flashes of this throughout the season. Moments where the Steelers' offense makes the exact right call at the exact right time. Moments where the defense makes a game-changing play because they knew what was coming. Those aren't just lucky breaks. That's preparation. That's coaching. That's Mike Tomlin's teaching method, paying dividends in real time. Now here's why this matters so much for the future of this franchise. The Steelers are in a transitional phase, right? We all know this. The roster has been turning over. The team is getting younger. The salary cap has been tight. Omar Khan is working magic in the front office to keep this thing competitive. But the reality is, the Steelers don't have the same star power they had during the prime Big Ben years. So how do you stay competitive? How do you keep the standard of never having a losing season alive? You coach your tail off. You get more out of your players than other teams get out of theirs. You develop guys faster. You make fewer mistakes. You put your players in position to succeed even when you're not the most talented team on the field. And that's exactly what Tomlin is doing with this teaching method. He's creating a system where players can reach their potential faster because they're being taught better. And in a league where the margins are razor thin, where one play can be the difference between winning and losing, that kind of edge is everything. Let's also talk about the locker room dynamic, because this is another area where Tomlin's approach is having a huge impact. When players feel like their coach is actually invested in making them better, when they feel like they're being taught and developed instead of just being used, that creates loyalty, that creates buy-in. And we're seeing that in Pittsburgh right now. Guys are playing hard for Tomlin. Guys are fighting through adversity. The locker room is unified even when things get tough. And a lot of that comes down to the respect that Tomlin has earned by being a teacher first and a taskmaster second. There's also something to be said about how this teaching method helps with accountability. When a player truly understands what they're supposed to do and why they're supposed to do it, there's no excuse for not executing. Tomlin can hold guys accountable because he knows he's given them all the tools they need to succeed. And players respect that. They can't argue with it. They can't make excuses. Either you did your job or you didn't. And if you didn't, it's on you because coach already taught you everything you needed to know. Now let's get into the speculation side of this, because I think there's something even bigger happening here that a lot of people aren't talking about yet. Mike Tomlin is one of the most respected coaches in the NFL. He's never had a losing season. He's won a Super Bowl. He's a lock for the Hall of Fame whenever he decides to retire. But there's always been this narrative, especially from national media, that Tomlin is just a motivator, that he's just a good speaker who relates well to players, but maybe isn't an X's and O's genius. And I think Tomlin is aware of that narrative. I think he's aware of the criticism. And I think this evolution in his teaching method is partly about proving that he's more than just a rah-rah guy. He's a teacher, he's a tactician, he's constantly learning and adapting and getting better at his craft. And if that's true, if Tomlin is still evolving and improving after all these years in the league, that's scary for the rest of the AFC. Because a Mike Tomlin who's operating at an even higher level than before is a Mike Tomlin who can take the Steelers team places that maybe people aren't expecting. We're already seeing the foundation being laid. We're already seeing young players develop faster than anticipated. We're already seeing a team that's competitive week in and week out, despite not having a superstar quarterback or a defense full of Pro Bowlers. Imagine what happens when the Steelers do add more talent. Imagine what happens when Omar Khan nails another draft. Imagine what happens when this team gets a true franchise quarterback who can be molded by Tomlin's teaching method from day one. The ceiling for this franchise could be incredibly high because the infrastructure is already in place. The coaching is elite. The teaching is elite. The development system is elite. All that's missing is a few more pieces, and those pieces are a lot easier to find when you have a head coach who can maximize their potential. Here's another angle that's fascinating to think about. Tomlin's teaching method could also be changing how the Steelers evaluate talent. If your coaching staff is confident they can teach and develop players better than most teams, you don't necessarily need to draft or sign finished products. You can take chances on high-upside guys who might be raw but have the physical tools and the football IQ to be coached up. And that gives you more flexibility in the draft and in free agency. That lets you find value where other teams might not see it. That's how you build sustainable success, even when you're not spending like the biggest market teams. We're also seeing this teaching method impact special teams and situational football, which are areas where the Steelers have traditionally been strong under Tomlin. Late-game situations, clock management, understanding leverage on special teams plays, all of that requires teaching and preparation. And when your head coach is setting the standard for how teaching happens throughout the organization, that excellence trickles down to every phase of the game. Let's bring it back to the fans for a second, because I know Steelers Nation has been hungry for this kind of content. We've all been watching this team closely, trying to figure out what the identity is, trying to project where this thing is headed. And what we're finding out is that the foundation is stronger than maybe we realize. Tomlin isn't just keeping the ship afloat. He's actively building something. He's teaching the next generation of Steelers football. He's creating a culture where excellence is taught and expected, and that should get every single Steelers fan excited about the future. There's also this element of vindication for Tomlin. He's faced criticism over the years, some fair and some completely ridiculous. People have questioned his game management. People have questioned whether he can win without elite quarterback play. People have questioned whether the game has passed him by. And what we're seeing now is proof that Tomlin is still one of the best in the business. He's adapting. He's evolving. He's finding new ways to reach his players and get the most out of them. And that's what great coaches do. They don't rest on their laurels. They don't keep doing the same thing just because it worked in the past. They find ways to get better. The timing of this revelation is also important. We're in an era where coaching turnover is higher than ever. Teams are firing coaches after 2 or 3 seasons if they don't see immediate results. The patience that used to exist in the NFL is pretty much gone. And yet here's Mike Tomlin, approaching 2 decades with the same franchise, still finding ways to innovate and improve. That's not just about job security. That's about a genuine passion for coaching and teaching. That's about a guy who loves what he does and is committed to being great at it. And let's not overlook the impact this has on the Steelers brand. Pittsburgh is a city that values hard work, preparation, doing things the right way. The Steelers have always been about blue blue-collar
pension,
football,
it is
about
absolutely
outworking
critical that
and
you check whether
out-preparing
you are
opponents.
entitled to claim
And
pension
Tomlin's
credit,
teaching
which
method
not
fits
only provides
perfectly into that
additional weekly
identity.
income,
He's
but
not
also
looking for
acts as a
shortcuts.
gateway to
He's
other
not trying to
benefits,
win with
including
gimmicks.
help with heating
He's
costs,
teaching his players
council
how to
tax
play winning
reductions,
football the right
free
way,
dental
and that
treatment,
resonates with
and
the fan base
assistance
in a
with
deep
housing
way.
costs.
So where does this
Beyond
leave
pension
us?
credit,
What's the
many
bottom line on
pensioners
all
are
of this?
entitled to claim
I think
personal
what we're
independence
witnessing is a
payment
head coach
if
who's
they have
cementing
health
his
conditions
legacy
or
not just as a
disabilities
winner,
that
but
affect
as
their
one of the
daily
great
living or
teachers the game has
mobility,
ever
and
seen.
PIP
We're watching
is
a
not
franchise
means
that's
tested,
building something
so you can
sustainable
claim it
even in the face
regardless
of
your
roster
income or
turnover and
savings.
salary cap challenges.
Employment and
We're
support
seeing young
allowance
players
is
develop
available
at
to
an
those who are
accelerated
unable
rate
to
because
work
they're being
due to
taught by one
illness
of
or
the best.
disability, and
And
who
we're
have not
seeing a
yet
locker
reached
room that's
state
bought in
pension
and
age,
unified because
while
their coach has
attendance
earned their
allowance is
respect through
specifically
genuine
designed
investment in
for
their
people
development.
over state pension age
The
who
implications
need
for
help
this
with
season and
personal care
beyond are
due to
massive.
illness or
If the
disability.
Steelers can continue
Every
to
single
develop
one of these
players at this
benefits
rate,
could add
if they can
hundreds of
continue to
pounds
get
per
more
month
out of
to
their
your
roster
income.
than the
Yet
talent level might
millions of
suggest,
eligible
they're
pensioners
going to be a
are not
problem in the
claiming them
AFC
simply
for years
because
to
they do
come.
not know they
The
exist,
AFC
or
North
they
is
assume they
brutal.
would not qualify.
The Ravens have
Now
Lamar.
let us address
The
some of the
Bengals have
discount
Burrow.
programs that many
The Browns are
pensioners
always
still
trying to
believe
build something.
exist, but which
But
have
the
actually
Steelers
been
have Mike
discontinued
Tomlin.
or
And what we're
significantly
learning
changed
is that might
because
be the biggest
shopping
advantage
decisions
of all.
based on outdated
This
information
is the kind of story
waste
that doesn't
both time
always
and
make
money.
headlines,
B&Q
but it's the
was famous for
foundation
many
of
years
everything
for
that
its
matters in
Diamond Club
football.
scheme, which
Coaching
offered
matters,
10% off
teaching
every
matters,
Wednesday for
development
shoppers
matters.
aged 60
And the
and
Steelers
over.
have a head
And it
coach
was one of the
who's
most
operating
widely
at an elite
recognized
level in
pensioner
all three
discounts in the
areas.
entire country.
That's not
However,
just good
the
news for this
reality
season.
in 2026
That's great
is very
news for the
different
future
from what
of
many
this
people
franchise.
still believe.
Steelers Nation should be
B&Q
excited,
closed the Diamond
should be
Club to new
confident,
members
should be
in
ready to
September
see this thing
2018,
pay off in
which
a
means
major way.
if you signed up before
Drop
that
your
date
thoughts in
and
the
still have
comments.
your physical
Let me
Diamond
know if
card,
you think
it
Tomlin
may
is getting
still
the
provide
respect
a
he
limited
deserves,
discount
or
on
if the
certain
national
Gardening
media is
products
still
on Wednesdays.
sleeping on what he's
But if you
building
have
in
never had a
Pittsburgh.
Diamond card,
And make sure
or
you're
if you lost
subscribed
yours,
because we're
you
breaking
cannot
down
obtain one
Steelers
now,
news like this
and there is
every
no
single
general
day.
over 60s
This team is
discount
building
rate
something
at
special,
B&Q.
and you're not going to want to miss what happens next.